some last minute notes. So, weekend preview time again, and it's a really big weekend preview this weekend, a juicy one with Festival Trials Day, and it's the turn of our chief correspondent, Jamie Lynch, who we haven't seen for what feels like a decade.
Not on Facebook Live.
No,
I'm afraid that some people at home might have seen me here and there in various guises, in various media platforms, a little too much for their liking, but this is home. Our beautiful boardroom here, which people have commented on in the past. One day, if you're very lucky, we'll give you a full virtual tour around the boardroom. But know what goes on down here.
I thought you were going to say you can come to Timeform and in person.
No one wants that. But a really big weekend because A, there's some really good racing in their own right, but B, especially this time of year, everything is sort of through the filter of the festival, isn't it? We're looking for horses and races that are going to change targets and move markets when it comes to the festival itself, and we've got probably 5 or 6 races in that mould this very weekend.
But more importantly, the Timeform Novices handicap chase,
and
as
we've
well.
got that. We're going to be plugging heavily, aren't we?
Yeah, and the best place to start really is the Cotswold Chase, which was the highlight last year in terms of a spectacle. And I doubt it'd be. It
was tinged with sadness, wasn't it? As is this Cheltenham this weekend, which we'll come to in a second. But of course, the mighty many clouds. He went out in his beloved sort of discipline of what he did. He turned away Thistlecracker, who was then the glamour boy of chasing, and he sort of was one of them really old-fashioned horses who did things his way. And he sort of looked at Thistlecracker and said, "Oh, you're the new boy in the block, are you? I'm going to teach you a lesson." And that's exactly what he did. And it was such a shame that we lost him that day. But sort of a great tribute that he went out in that style in which he did. And he's sort of forever remembered, isn't he? And you wrote something this week or last week?
I did, yeah.
About that and about him.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a horse try so hard as he did that day.
And it sort of hits back on the point that we're making, that you sort of think sometimes that all these Cheltenham markets are settled and arranged and pre-arranged, and then you get like that race last year that dropped a bomb in the middle of the Cheltenham Gold Cup market itself, because Thistlecracker at that point was a short price favourite, and obviously he didn't even get to Cheltenham in the end, did he, with his problems. But just an idea or a reference point that these races, especially races like the Cotswold Chase, really can make a big difference on the whole fabric of the season, and not just in this particular race this day.
Yeah, completely different feel this year as well to it, because we've got Bristol Demai at the top of the market, about 5-4 at the moment. Should he be that price, considering what we know about him, that Haydock is his happy hunting ground? There's questions about him at Cheltenham. Where do you stand with him?
There's 2 big question marks with him in the context of that price of 5-4. And why it feels a bit skinny is exactly the point you've hit on. You don't often get in racing home and away fixtures, do you? That's really the province of football. But it's very much the case with Bristol Demai that if this was a home fixture for him at Haydock, on Haydock ground, then he's nearly unbeatable, as the Betfair Chase showed. But away from Haydock, he doesn't seem quite the same force, and whether that's to do with the configuration of the tracks, or more probably the fact that you don't quite get as testing ground elsewhere. And even though Cheltenham on Saturday will be soft, it won't be Haydock heavy, will it? Which is a different point to make. And the other thing with him, regards his price at around about 5-4, 11-10, is that I just got the Timeform ratings written down here. Obviously the final field is still to be declared, but the likelihood is that we'll get most of those. There's about 10 or so in it, and we're probably going to get most of those. Bristol Demai is top rated, as you'd expect, based on that Betfair Chase win, but there are 4 horses who are within £5 of him on the rating. So I suppose it's a 2-point thing with Bristol Demai and his price, is that it's an away fixture for him because it is at Cheltenham, where he's never really shone in the past, and B, he's not that far clear on ratings, on Timeform ratings anyway. Obviously there's how you try and rationalise the rating that he gets out of the Betfair Chase, and what we've got on him now is a conservative view naturally of what he did that day. He could be £20 higher given the actual literal figures of the wide margins involved that day. But our interpretation as it stands of him, he's not that far ahead of the pack, so that makes his price look skinny. But by the same token, if he is firing on all cylinders and suddenly he does do a Bristol Demai elsewhere at Cheltenham, and don't forget that he did it at Wetherby earlier in the season when he beat Black Lion, it makes his price a little more rational. But as we sit here now, and as people will look at the race in more detail in the next 48 hours, you can't help but think that price is wrong on the short side.
And one he stands out from a Timeform perspective, at least, is American.
Yeah.
Who put up a staggering figure as a novice last year. He hasn't quite shown it since. But will he get conditions? Is it that the sort of case for him?
It's a really important point to make that you've made about him and his status at the end of last season, because even though he didn't do it in a traditional manner, i.e. tackle the championship novice races in the spring, he achieved figures in novice events on the way there and in handicaps at Uttoxeter, which more or less made him the equal of Whisper, certainly, who isn't here, but who, obviously, you know yourselves at home where he stands in the Gold Cup picture. And even Mike Bite, he wasn't far off Mike Bite as a novice. And that's a really pertinent point to make, in that even though his CV wouldn't say that this horse is of the Cotswold Chase level, the rating that he's got from various runs last year suggests that he very much is at home in this company. And so the other question you raised is, well, what's happened this year? And I think that it's all around that, the Hennessy or the Ladbroke Trophy as it is now, in that he was primed for that race. Harry Fry, he was really sort of confident about him. You could tell that from the way he spoke about him. You could tell that from the fact he went off 5-1.
Well backed, I think.
But it was just a combination of the ground not being as soft as either he faced last season or he'll face on Saturday, and I think moreover, just that high intensity race like the Ladbroke Trophy was something that, an environment which he'd never been in before, and he just found it a shock to the system, and one mistake quickly became two. He lost his rhythm, he lost his chance, and he just didn't fire it at all. So I think Harry Fry since then has done the right thing of reprogramming and refreshing him, and it's a really big statement of faith that he's coming here to the Cotswold Chase, sort of still with that flicker of Gold Cup potential about him.
And also in here we've got some big names really, because we've got two that you'd associate with the Grand National, The Last Samurai, another one who perhaps is away from home, Definitely Red, who potentially has Gold Cup aspirations of his own, and then Coneygree as well, who we know about.
Coneygree, former Gold Cup winner, and what price is he for the Cotswold Chase?
Best price 8-1 at the
8-1, and that is reflective of the water that's flown to the bridge since then, or more to the point, the water that hasn't flown to the bridge, because it hasn't been free-flowing, he hasn't been free-flowing. One of the big topics of 2018 in racing is the wind-ups and the fact that they'll be declared. And you look in the Timeform card, in the Cheltenham card, you will see that W next to Coneygree that signifies he's had a wind operation since his early disappointments this season, and everything is pinned on that. But obviously, you know, people at home knows we've got a Gold Cup winner in here who is 8-1 for a Grade 2 race at his beloved Cheltenham. So again, another horse who, joining the dots, you can make a big case for him.
So is it, I think we've tackled really Bristol de Mai. Is he one to take on here if you were to put a bet up?
My reading of this race right now is that Bristol de Mai's a little uncomfortably too short at that sort of price, 11-10. I think that on the day he'll be more like 13-8, even 7-4, just because as it hits home on people that this is a good race in a deep field and that there are others with big chance in there, and that it is an away fixture, as we call it, for Bristol de Mai. As you mentioned, it's an away fixture in a way for the Last Samurai, because you get the impression that everything revolves around Rangers with him. So as we sit here now, looking at the prices, looking at the field, the horse we talk the most about, American, makes most sense to me. I know that a guy who usually sits here and talks better and more fluently, Dan Barber, than me, he's very keen on American in this, just says that this is his ideal scenario. Softish ground, manageable field, lessons learned from the Ladbroke Trophy, and just as I said, the Bristol de Mai, I can see him going off more like 7-4. I can see American going off more like 5-1.
So American in the Cotswold Chase. I should have a pun ready, but I don't. So we'll go into the Cleeve Hurdle instead, as you say, tinged with tragedy because of what happened to Richard Wallacott.
So really sad this week that Richard Wallacott has died prematurely at the age of 40, and the reason why it sort of hits home so much is that he really had his name put on the map by Beer Goggles this season, and Beer Goggles since that day has been in training and in readiness for this next big appointment, which is the Cleeve Hurdle. It's good news, or a light at the end of the tunnel, that the ownership has already been transferred, the trainer ownership, into his wife Kaylee Wallacott. And obviously, there is, beyond ratings, beyond betting, there's a romantic side within us all, which would love to see Beer Goggles win in honour and tribute to Richard Wallacott. So that's the first point to make. He is top rated. He is top rated. You go back and he was a surprise package that day at Scott Crimber when no one could believe. All eyes were on Thistlecrack, and you know what I mean, Harry. And this horse just went from the front and never looked like being caught in truth. And it was a real announcement of arrival. So the point with Beer Goggles is, will he back that up? Will he support what he did at Ascot in the Cleeve Hurdle? Well, the racing say he's got a favourite's chance. He's not favourite because we've got various other horses in there who have their own stories and their own credentials and their own little subplots that's going on. So who's the favourite, Nick, for the Cleeve?
Finian's Oscar.
And this is a fascinating horse, isn't it? In that at the start of the season, he was amongst the favourites for all the novice chases at Cheltenham. The Arkle, the JLT for sure, even the RSA. But he hasn't really taken to chasing as much as you'd expect, as much as Colin Tizard wanted, and that's why he's rerouted to the hurdling scene with one eye on the Stayers Hurdle. So it's the Cleeve Hurdle for him, and a sort of shot at redemption for him to try and kickstart his season and re-kickstart his career.
Has it surprised you that he hasn't taken to fences?
Yeah, because he's got the make and shape of a chaser. I think he won a point in his early days. And Colin Tizard is usually mustard when it comes to translating and transferring really good hurdlers into even better chasers. So things haven't gone to plan with him. That's why he's here. But he's a fascinating horse because it's hard to know what rating he's capable of over hurdles. It could be that he's improved since last season when he was really good. It could be that his chasing experience might just be reflective of where he's at in ability and status terms right now. So really a lot of question marks again about a horse who's favourite in a really good field, because apart from Beer Goggles, who we've talked about, there's a few others in there who are live contenders as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. We've got two novices from last season, the World's End and Agripart as well, so intriguing.
We've got three sort of still up and coming horses, I'd say. Agripart and Holstone were first and second in the Relkeel Hurdle. Agripart is £3 better off this day. My interpretation still is that I can see Holstone confirming that form, because we've talked a bit already today about home and away fixtures. Well, there's no home fixture more for Holstone than Cheltenham. Raced here 6 times, won 4, finished second and third on the other 2 occasions in really big prizes, including the Albert Bartlett. He's taken a while for his season to really kick on and regain that progressive thread. Did that in the Relkeel Hurdle, but just that difference in profile compared to the World's End is just sending me a little towards Tom George's runner. Because don't forget that when Holstone finished third at the Cheltenham Festival in the Albert Bartlett, the World's End was still cruising 2 out when he fell, and it looked like he was going to play a big part in that finish. Obviously he was quick to recover from that because he won the Grand Sefton at Aintree. He's had 2 starts this season. He ran okay behind Sam Spinner last time in 4th. But just the sort of feeling with him, remembering how he went through his races last season, seeing how he's gone through both his races this season, I don't think that he hit peak form in the autumn. And I just got this feeling, now with Tom George's string really rolling, that we might just see a better version of the World's End. The version of the World's End who looked, when he won the Grand Sefton, like he would be a big player in the Stayers Hurdle. And we're back to Finian's Oscar a little bit, in that this horse, for all the world, looks like a chase of the World's End, and there's a reason why Tom George delayed his chasing for a campaign, for a full season, and that is because he felt that he could win big races as a hurdler. And this might just be the start, I would say, of phase 3 of the World's End's career. Because phase 1 was brilliant in that it was a novice campaign that went all the way to a grade 1 entry. Phase 2 was this sort of wobble he's had earlier in the season, and this might be phase 3, the start of which. So just at the prices, I'd rather lock onto his potential than trust one of the proven performers to complete their job.
And of course, the World's End, the second most interesting of the McNeil horses in training. They've got a bumper horse. He's been entered a few times. I can't remember if he ran it. He was due to run at Kelso today, but I don't think he did.
Right.
Called Seddon.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Baffled, but there you go. They must know someone called Seddon. So,
well, isn't there a Simon Pegg film called The World's End?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So The World's End was named after a comedy character.
Yeah, the Cornetto trilogy. Yeah.
And Seddon named after another comedy character.
Well, you know.
So just my conclusion with that race is that, look, we're going to learn a lot about that, and it is going to shake up the Stayers Hurdle market But right now, just looking at the prices, the horse who I think might gain some traction on Saturday is the Wales End, because think back to how he ended last season rather than how he started this season, and suddenly we can see a horse who should be shorter than 8-1 to win the Cleeve.
Yeah, 25-1 to win the Stayers Hurdle, the Wales End. Let's go all the way down the page there.
It's quite a good angle in for the Cotswold and the Cleeve. If you fancy a horse pretty strong in the Cotswold or the Cleeve, maybe you throw a fiver at them for either the Gold Cup or the Stayers Hurdle respectively, because if, say for example, American won the Cotswold Chase, you'd be talking about a 10-1 shot for an Open Gold Cup. If the Wales End won the Cleeve, you'd be talking about an 8 or 9 shot in an Open Stayers Hurdle. So just one thing to think about there is that if you do fancy one strongly, maybe have a little play up and the anti-post marker, and then you're getting 2 wins for double jeopardy, double trouble, double...
Yeah.
Double something there. There's something.
Double bubble.
Double bubble, maybe?
Double bubble, yeah. Well, while we're thinking of that, we'll move on to the rest of the... There's plenty of other business at Cheltenham.
We're going to try and round up as much as we can, because it's better, I think, to go through some other significant horses and races in a sort of a point format rather than spend time pouring through the whole race as an entirety. So we're going for the individual parts rather than the sum of the parts, starting with, I tasked you about an hour ago to come up with the favourite for the Triumph. The short price favourite for the opening race at Cheltenham on Saturday will be the Juvenile Queen, Apple Shakira, and I tasked you with punning, your specialist subject of punning for Apple Shakira. So get set, everyone at home.
Well, what I decided to do was throw 2 questions at you.
Okay.
First of all, how impressive has she been on the ratings from a ratings perspective so far this season? And also, more importantly, will she be right for this or rotten to the core?
Oh, now, I like it, and why you get extra double bubble points for that is that I'll add whenever, wherever. I just thought that you'd be going down that line. Is that would she be favourite for any juvenile race wherever? Whenever.
Stay fruity, fruity.
But I like yours more. Here's the thing with Apple Shakira. She's brilliant. She's been brilliant so far at Cheltenham for Nicky Henderson. But this is a very, very unusual division, the juveniles, in that we've got 5 horses who are unbeaten so far and who are all above average in terms of what you normally expect of a juvenile. We've got Radichin, who's 2 from 2 for Alan King. We have a Dream, 3 from 3 for Henderson. Espoir d'Alen, the horse who's running riot over in Ireland. Stormy Island for Willie Mullins, who was so dynamic on his debut. And then we've got Apple Shakira. So... in the next few weeks, each of these is going to sort of put down a marker or lay claim for that Triumph win and Triumph favouritism. And this is, I think, the first one for Apple Shakira. She's the first one up on the stage to say, right, let's see what you've got. It's a bit like an X Factor, that over the next 5 weeks, we're going to see what they've got and decide between ourselves who our favourite is. And Apple Shakira, why this is such a big day for her is that she hasn't been extended. She hasn't been asked to turn it on to full power by Barry Geraghty in either of her runs. But it's really important ahead of the Triumph that she does have a workout and have a race, because track experience is one thing, which she'll have in spades going to Triumph. The sort of Triumph intensity and experience of managing a big field is something different entirely. Not many of these have got it. It's hard for her to get it given the shape of this field, but I suspect that we'll see Barry Geraghty open her up a little bit, just so she's really on point when it comes to the Triumph. So a really big day for her. We haven't got the final decks, but whatever's up against her, wherever, she's going to be odds on, long odds on. So it's not really about backing her to win. It's backing her. Looking at her in this prism. We've got 5 really good, really high class juveniles, and what sort of marker is she going to lay down?
It will be interesting, because I remember at Timeform Day last year, the card opened with Defi de Soy, another one owned by JP.
Perfect,
and that was a penalty kick, and we know what he went on to do. So
good point.
Could be parallels, might not be. On to the feature race of the year, the Timeform Novice Handicap Chase, and it's a bit of a corker, really. It was won last year by Raw Vacation, who's proven to be handy, but there's some taking names in here: Q-Star Civila, Not Another Muddle, Sizing Tennessee. Is it as good as it sounds?
Yeah, it is. But there is one horse we're really drawn to here, and it is one that you've mentioned, this Not Another Muddle. 2 from 2 over fences so far, jumps really well. Doesn't race that efficiently, but that's because in those races at Plumpton and Leicester, he's been in small fields, inferior fields, and that what he's been up against has essentially been beneath him. And it's just been a matter of teaching him how to race properly over fences by Jamie Moore, who's done a really good job at that. But what this horse is crying out for is a big field and the good gallop that is generated by a big field, because he is really going to be in his element with that sort of setup. And I think that it's significant that you go back to last season. Gary Moore thought enough of Not Another Muddle to throw him into the Imperial Cup on just his 4th ever start over hurdles, and he ran really well to finish 4th or 5th.
Fifth,
yeah.
Down here as,
Not beaten far though for a horse who's so inexperienced, and that sort of told us at that point, oh, I know what this horse wants. It wants a big field and a good gallop where it can travel strongly through the race. And I think that this horse is tailor-made for a novice handicap chase around Cheltenham with a big field, which the Timeform novices handicap chase always is. So an early sort of heads up here. He is Timeform top rated. He has got a P. He does jump really well. Everything is placed for Not Another Muddle to take the next step up the ladder in that. So even though this is a race where you've got several up-and-coming novices, he, to me, and to various people in the jumps department, says, ooh, this is the right horse for this race.
You're going to be there on Saturday with your Timeform flag and umbrella? And
of course I will.
Yeah. You're not, are you?
No, I won't.
Over to Doncaster.
I'll be going to Doncaster to oversee events there.
Yeah. Over to Doncaster with several graded races here. Interesting entrance of a Novice's Chase with So Royal. Is it another case of a coming for age for him?
Yeah, exactly. And another big day for him, because this is his final preparation ahead of the Arkle Chase at Cheltenham. And why it's so significant with him is that he carries the two-tone green colours of Simon Mania and Isaac Slade. Yeah. Everyone has a bit of a wobble when it comes to Isaac Swed, because they don't know where to accentuate the vowel sounds. Isaac Swed. I did learn this week down at the races that another name which we all have a wobble with when we approach it is the trainer of Litigant, Joe
Colliver.
No, the trainer.
The trainer.
Joe Tweet.
Oh.
Tuite. And I'm reliably informed by the man himself that it is cute. The phonic sound is cute, but with a ch in front of it, so it's cute. Joseph Chute. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's everyone. That's just for my personal benefit. But
I thought you were going to bring up the age-old debate of Southwell Southwell.
No.
Here we go again.
But whenever you're talking and you come towards Joseph Chute, I always had a bit of a struggle. And the same with Isaac Swed and Simon Mania. But they've got two crack novices who both look real Arkle naturals. Sir Royal, who won the Henry VIII, and Footpad, who's creating a storm over in Ireland. Now, the reason why Sir Royal is so important at Doncaster on Saturday is just because if he really does put in the afterburners and put on a show, it might just plant the seed in the owners' minds to maybe we'll just leave the Arkle for Sir Royal and let Footpad loose in the JLT, because he's used to run over a bit longer trips. So it's just important and vital that we see how good Sir Royal is and what sort of shape he's in ahead of Cheltenham, not just for our benefit this day, but for the Cheltenham market, for the Arkle, because there's two Cheltenham markets which hang around Footpad. JLT and the Arkle are both pretty static right now because we're waiting to see which way Footpad goes, and moving pieces around the chessboard. Sir Royal is really important in that eventuality.
So you think we'll get a Ritchie approach with the two rather than a Gigginstown approach, where they probably because they've got more runners, they're more happy to race their horses, whereas Ritchie builds his entire season picking up as many races as he can.
It's a good point to make, and I think that there is a bit of a precedent in that when Munir and Suede had two really good juveniles, Peace and Co and Top Notch, they let them both run in the Triumph against each other. Were the first and second or first and third? There was
first and third, I think. I think there was a McManus horse.
But it would have been easier to do a McManus, who once, when he had two fancies for the Triumph, he let Binocular run in the Novice as a 4-year-old claiming the allowance and left Franchik loose, or to have the Triumph for himself. He didn't win either race, as it turned out. But it's just an example of the way that owners can operate. So it might be that Sir Royal and Footpad both line up in the Arkle, in which case it's really good for us as viewers because we've got these two crack horses. But that's the reason why Doncaster on Saturday is so important for Sir Royal and the Arkle, is that it might just change an agenda.
Also important for the mares. There's a mares hurdle, Grade 2, and there's one in here that you are really sweet on.
I don't do much day-to-day jumps reporting, but twice this season, as a Timeform race reader, as an assessor, as an analyst, I've come across Marie's Benefit, and I've been blown away both times, particularly at Taunton over Christmas, when she ran away from a really good listed field and won by over 30 lengths in a really good time. So she's going to go for this mare's hurdle at Doncaster. Now, she's a novice, Maria's Benefit. Her target at Cheltenham already is mapped out for the novice hurdle over 2 miles. Is it the Dawn Run, you call it?
I get them mixed up, to be honest.
I think it's the Dawn Run novice hurdle. But she's going to take in this open, all-aged Grade 2 at Doncaster on the way, because it fits in perfectly with the times and with the right races. This is a race that's been won in the past by Annie Power, by Vroom Vroom Mag. Willie Mullins knows about this race and what a good stepping stone it is, but it's also been won in the recent past by Smart Talk and Intense Tango. And the reason I bring those two in is because Smart Talk was a novice and Intense Tango was even less than that, was a juvenile when she won. So there is a recent precedent of novices shining in this company. And Maria's Benefit, just watch her on Saturday. She's a joy to watch because she's full of enthusiasm, full of zest, just pings every hurdle. And Kieran Gethings, who rides her regularly, he just knows that when she's on it, and he lets her rip at sort of unusual stages in the race, and sometimes just lets her go with the flow and very much lets her be her own master. Verdana Blue's in here and is going to run for Nikki Henderson, and the Timeform ratings is right up there because she brings in some really strong handicap form. So it's going to be a real test for Maria's Benefit and a real cat and mouse race where Maria's Benefit is the hare and Verdana Blue is the greyhound trying to catch her. But I'm just in love with Maria's Benefit, and I think and hope that she wins this, and I hope that she wins at Cheltenham as well, because she's about 7 or 8 to 1 still for the Dawn Run novice hurdle at Cheltenham, and I promise you that she should be shorter than that now, and if she wins on Saturday she should be favourite.
Would she be shorter if Willie Mullins trained her?
Exactly exactly the point to make. And obviously when we do make these statements, I mean, I've used it myself in the past, saying, well, if that was trained by X, it would be 7 to 4, which is all good and well, but there's a reason why Willie Mullins and Nikki Henderson train so many winners at the festival. That is because they are so good. But the evidence is mounting and really clear now that Maria's Benefit is not just one of the best of the sort of lower league horses or unfashionable connections. She's just one of the best novice hurdlers that Britain's got.
Am I right in thinking that this race has set pulses racing for punters? Was this the one where Vroom Vroom Mag absolutely crawled in?
Yeah.
I can't remember about Annie Power. I think.
Annie Power. It was a young Annie Power who was on her way up, and she was brilliant in this. But Vroom Vroom Mag is a good point to make.
Absolutely scrambled.
Remember, she was wobbling around at the end, wasn't she, like a boxer?
I think I was racing somewhere. Was it last year?
Probably
was it Cheltenham
yeah.
Then? If it was last year, and I just remember everyone gasping because she was about 9 to 2 on, and she only just got in. And it's fitting that we finish on the most exciting part of the weekend, your favourite bit of the weekend, the Pegasus World Cup, which is multi-million in pounds. And we've got a British interest here in Toast New York. Came back, as we talked about, at Lingfield.
We did.
Last month. He's 16 to 1. It looks like he's going to have to shift, though, to trouble the conqueror of Harrogate, Gunrunner.
Yeah, we've got... So the case with Toast New York is that he was beaten at Nose in the Breeders' Cup Classic on dirt.
Dortmund, was it?
Dortmund beat him. California Chrome was third. When was that? 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And then he went to stud in the Middle East. I think that rather than necessarily being short of swimmers, he was short of supporters. He wasn't really much of a headline act and wasn't really a go-to stallion, and that's why he's come back into training and he's had that one run at Lingfield to put at least one edge on him for this. But look, this is a world away from what he did at Lingfield, and it's quite a short time frame to turn him around only 6 weeks on and get him ready for the best dirt race probably there's ever been in America, because we've got Gunrunner, and we've got the first 5, in fact, from the Breeders' Cup Classic who are all coming here. We've got a filly who was sold to Coolmore for 6 million, Stellar Wind, who they said, all right, we're going to breed off here, but haven't run in this £7 million race, see if we can get a bit back. And there wasn't a horse I wrote down. Sharp Aztec is an interesting one because just a different line of forming, and that's a miler going up in trip. But the Toast of New York, I'm afraid, is going to be burnt toast. There's no way that horse can be in the first three in a race like this. I'm sorry.
Well, you never know. I can't think of a pun, but it might be.
Let me just say one more thing before I go. 3 more words. We talked about the Timeform Novice Handicap, and if there's a one horse who can stop Not Another Muddle in the Timeform Novice Handicap, it's Coostar Sivilla.
Lizzie Kelly.
She's
got a cracking book of rides, hasn't she, on Saturday?
A really important point to make, because Lizzie Kelly, if you look at the declarations as they are now, there is no name next to Coostar Sivilla in the Timeform Handicap Chase. But in the next Handicap Chase, which is just an open grade 3 handicap, her name does appear next to Coostar Sivilla. So it seems like Coostar Sivilla is going to go and roll the big dice and take on the established chases in that race. Now, he was 4th in the Martin Pipe last year. He's had 3 runs in small fields in novice chases. 2 of them have been at Cheltenham. Lizzie Kelly couldn't claim in those races either. And it seems to me like Nick Williams has worked backwards from this point. He wanted to get to this specific race. He needed to do that via experience, and via experience of chasing at Cheltenham in particular. That's been done. And from his mark, Coostar Sivilla is the nap of the weekend. Not in the Timeform Novice Handicap Chase. If it turns up in that, then we're all crying, because Not Another Muddle hopefully will win that. But if indeed Coostar Sivilla is declared at Cheltenham on Saturday, and not for the Timeform Novice Handicap Chase, but for the next Grade 3, then I'm going to go into the airing cupboard, take out, dust off the betting boots, and we're going to put them on 4 square and stand behind Coostar Sivilla and Lizzie Kelly.
Mic drop.
Nothing else to say. Mic drop. Record scratch. What do we do on that?
We'll close it on that.
Thanks, everyone.